With all the dark, scary things happening in the world right now, you might be feeling heavy, maybe even hopeless.
But beneath the surface, there's something very powerful happening.
It's an awakening. I'm Jay Pryor, spiritual seeker, life coach, and teacher.
And I'm Megan Lee, a 7th generation seer and medium. We're bringing our gifts to this present moment,
exploring our own awakening and talking with leaders, healers, and visionaries who are helping others wake up as well.
We're also diving into the neuroscience of the woo-woo, exploring how science is finally catching up with the spiritual and helping explain it.
We believe that what we focus on expands and that we are all deeply connected.
Welcome to your awakening.
So I'm delighted beyond belief because part of our podcast is Megan and I don't know each other that well. Spirit put us together, Martha, and part of our commitment is to focus our light on the current awakening that is happening, because what we know is what we focus on gets bigger. And we want people to focus on their own awakening and the awakening that is happening in the world versus all the scary, dark stuff that's happening. And part of the joy for me is I get to introduce Megan to all my teachers and my mentors. And Megan, there's not a bigger one than Martha Creek. I just got to tell you, this woman, woo! So I don't know if you can feel it from there, but when you're in the presence of Martha Creek, there is nothing but love. And I am not kidding. This woman has a vibration that it is just love. And it is palpable, Martha, to be in your presence and have that experience. And so I am delighted to introduce you to Megan and to have you on the Wake Up Wave podcast with us. So thank you for saying yes.
Well, it is my highest privilege to be here. I absolutely go where I'm invited. I was delighted to see you at that big Raise the Roof event that we had, and to be a part of uplifting anything in the world, Jay, you're about. And Megan, to get to know you is an absolute example of what I mean when I say God outdoes me. So I will get to know you, although I wouldn't have had any way to know you if we hadn't come together here today. So it's absolutely an honor to know you and to serve you in whatever you're about in some way. And I consider us all co-inspirators, and that we are absolutely here on purpose and devote this time to the unfolding, the awakening, the whatever word you want to give it to, each of our souls, our individual souls, and evolution, and therefore the soul of humanity. If cosmic ideas are true, quantum theory is true, then what we're doing here today holds a great potency for the whole of humanity. So I'm devoted, and my call to ministry, Jay's probably heard many times, is to serve those who serve. To serve those who serve. So that's the reason I'm here today. So that's what I think about you already, Megan.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Also, how cool.
Yeah.
So, Martha, Jay's told me a little bit about you, but how do you, can you tell us a little bit about your own personal awakening to that path and what that looked like for you? And then also, how do you involve other people to be able to serve other people?
Whew. Well, that's how long do we have here, honey? Because that's a big old question. Yeah. So I knew at an early age, and the earliest I recall was age 3, that I looked around in my own family and in my own environment and had a thought that was, oh hell, I'm the oldest one here. So early on, so whether that comes in with us, part of our soul's assignment, whether it's past lives, depending on what people believe, that I knew at an early age that I am here to lead, that I am here to be the calmest one in the room I can be, and to be a circuit breaker for what might be going on in the room. And I'm here to absolutely bring forth all the gifts that I have within me to serve this family, to serve the environment I'm in, the community, and therefore humanity. So I lived that out, my life, without going to church or anything. I wanted to go to church. My family wasn't churched. Although they claimed they went to church, if somebody asked them, they would have said, we go to church, because guilt has a big price like that. And I asked to go to church, and said, they told me, my mother, in her classic Virginia Creek way, said, find you a way to church. If you want to go to church, you find you a way to go. So I started calling all the neighbors and started going to the churches around closest to the house, and they didn't fit me. I had very strange feelings in one of the churches, uncomfortable feelings, the feelings of not being safe and not being a part of it. And I just said, I don't want to go there anymore. I was just a young girl. And come to find out, one of the elders there was actually molesting his twin daughters. And that eventually came into the light. So I've had an intuition about me too, since an early age, that I had enough devotion or enough insight, even as a kid, to know I've got to follow that, even though it's not popular at times and doesn't make a speck of sense. And my mother's response to that was, don't ever speak that. He's one of the deacons, like, don't ever speak that. When I said, some man there's giving me the creeps. So it's like, I don't have to speak it, and I can't go there. And then I went to a Methodist church, and I love the people. I love what I got to do there. I love my Sunday school teacher. And I got to memorize scripture and sing and things that were meaningful to me, although I didn't believe what they said. I didn't believe that I was a sinner. I didn't believe that I was born in original sin. And I told my Sunday school teacher one day, because I thought she knew, I thought she believed like I did. So as a young girl, I told her, that's not actual, that God does not judge us. God does not punish us. God is not looking for us to redeem ourselves here. And she kind of panicked, as most would, because she thought she had a little lost sheep on her hands now. And so I was able to go there and take what I enjoyed there, but I didn't actually believe it. That I believed that I was with God, that I was God's own creation, life, universe. If you can't relate to the word God, that you would relate to universe, cosmos, whatever you think created everything here. So if God is not your word, then hopefully you won't throw out the whole podcast here because of that you'll find a word that would work for you. And I went on with my work, my study. And I determined at that age, that young little age, when I turned 40 years old, I would spend the rest of my life doing ministry professionally. That I would leave whatever job I was in, whatever positions I had, or whatever, and serve the rest of my days. So I'm 25 years into it now. And I'm trained in all kinds of things in the way of theology and degrees and human resources, accounting, doctorate degrees in divinity, fields of consciousness and religious studies, and conflict resolution, mediation skills, emotional process work. So I've got a lot of training, and I continue to train as I relate and identify very strongly as a student of life. And that I believe our minds are meant to be growth-minded, not fixed-minded. And that's important to me, to keep progressing and studying and learning skills and mastery. And through my time then, I got invited to join people in their groups, to serve ministries, to serve keynote speaking, regions, writing books, to do leadership training, board development, executive team development, all matters of things. So I've been self-employed for 25 years as a consultant and ministry consultant, and going where I'm invited.
Cool.
And Megan and I have talked a lot about, Martha, how a lot of us had to go through something, to get to where, like, we've had to deal with our trauma or our shadow work or whatever that is to get to that knowing of ourselves as that light that it feels like you just had like your whole life. Like I heard you on a podcast recently talk about how you'd never even, like, you just knew that, like, drinking was a no for you, right? And drugs were a no. And you've always just stayed true to that intuition. And I mean, that's, to me, that's, you came in already having, like you said, you came in with this knowing that you were the oldest person in the room. or the old, like that you had a purpose and you've always stayed true to that. And I just find that fascinating because, the rest of us, I mean, I had to go off the rails a couple different times. And I'm still, occasionally dealing with trauma drama stuff in terms of, this is why we do the work. And we can talk about that at some point. But could you speak to that for a second? Like, does it ever just be like, how in the world did I just,
Well, I don't, I can speak to it. I'm struck by how it's struck you, Jay, that I don't deny it. So I don't
right?
know what I came in with.
Yeah,
And I had to stop saying over the years, like, because I used to say, well, I've not ever had any trauma. I've not had any trauma, but that was a deep denial of the trauma that I have. And trauma is relative. You can ask somebody what their trauma is, and for those that's been mutilated and in all matters of things, everything known to the human mind that's been done to them that they live through, you wouldn't relate to, oh, that's trauma too.
yeah,
So I've had my own work to do and still have it to do. Like I'm in an unfolding also, and I stay enrolled in all matters of learning and in IFS training, my internal family systems training, and looking at where I felt betrayed and abandoned and let down and panicked and not supported and not seen and things like that. That actually was some level of trauma, baggage, burdening on this soul. So I work with that daily as a spiritual practice. And I don't know about this wisdom that was there with me. Like, it's an absolute no. And psychologists would say, well, you knew not to drink because you had drinking in your household, you had drinking in your family, and you could see the collateral damage of drinking. So a wise person wouldn't do such a thing because you don't want the collateral damage of that. So it would be like a rational kind of thought. And I don't know past that what it would have been. And not to say that I haven't had a drink. I have a drink with Mexican food. I have a margarita over the years. I don't anymore. I haven't in years. But in my 20s or 30s, I would have a wine occasionally with Italian food or something like that. But I didn't like it. It was not suitable for me. And it's like it's the indicators are there, and then I would still have a drink, like, oh, let's all have a drink, or peer pressure, what people would describe, but it was never in integrity for me to do
yeah,
that. So as I got more emotionally mature and spiritually mature, I knew that I can't do that. I can't be as about people pleasing and fitting in and going along to get along and all that. I can't do that and stay in integrity to myself. And that's my own spiritual accountability to
yeah,
say I can bear offending somebody, that I'm the only one at the table not having a drink. I can bear that better than I can bear being out of integrity with my own soul, or bear letting somebody down. I can bear that more than I can bear another self abandonment, another self rejection, or a betrayal of my own soul. So that's what part of it is. And I didn't want the consequences of that. I'd never seen anything good come from that. And I've seen such suffering and such chaos and disorder and all of that. That is an absolute part of people's awakening, which I'm you knock on something. I hope I'm awake enough now to know, and that I must accept that. To whatever degree alcohol has to consume somebody, that has to be that also is a part of a divine unfolding. And I've got to accept that, as much as I want them to be free of that, to be free of any substance or addictive, stranglehold. I don't get to run the universe yet, and God's got some answering to do about all that. So I don't know what it's about, other than I would say there was a known wisdom that I tried to attend to and cultivate from an early age, but it was more like a practical something. Like, that is a hot stove, so don't touch it because it will absolutely burn you. So it was more like that for me than anything moral or spiritual or anything. It was more of a practical awareness, I'd say.
yeah. That makes sense.
I like how you said you could bear disappointing someone else more than disappointing your soul truth. I want so many people to hear that line, and that the ramifications of disappointing your own soul truth is so much harder, harsher, and heavier to go through than the disappointment of any other human existence, feeling, or experience outside of your own in that moment.
Yeah. Well, I thank you, Megan, and I love hearing you. I hope you watch the recording of this so you can see what happened in you when you heard that. And
Oh,
it's what I was. It was moving and striking and very inspiring. And it's an indicator of, I believe, what scripture and other sage teaching says. When you hear the truth, when you know the truth, you're freer in the truth. I know the truth now. I know the truth now, and the truth has freed me now to say, wait a minute, I'm onto something here. This crazy Creek woman blew through here one day and reminded me, as hard as it is to bear disappointing somebody, it's a heck of a lot harder to insult my own soul, to abandon my own soul. And one of my teachers used to say, one is uncomfortable, the other is fatal.
mhm.
So we may not die physically, but something in us dies. And IFS would say that we go into exile. That part of us has to go into exile because we've been so estranged or so rejected, so abandoned, that we'd have to go into exile because we continue to re-injure ourselves, and without intent. We're not, it's not an intent to harm ourselves. It's just we've got this patterning and this pressure to be nice and to be kind and to go along and to be like they are and to fit in, and all of this. That's an innocent wiring in us. Our brains got wired up like that we've got to be in a tribe. We've got to be in a community. We've got to be in a relationship, and we need them, and we need them. And particularly as kids, particularly we took all this on as kids and believe that if I didn't get it from them, I won't make it. We'll be annihilated. We won't make it. We won't survive. So all of it triggers our very survival mechanism. So I hope the world hears that too. When people ask, like, if you've got one message for the world, it's like, bear the discomfort of disappointing someone over the abandonment of your own soul, of your own spirit.
Yeah.
And one way is uncomfortable, and one way is really collateral damage, really, really fatal in some ways. And I've said it other ways. I've been quoted as, it's like, it's a short-term discomfort or a long-term dysfunction. So bear the short-term discomfort, and eventually, see, we get a little practice at it. We can actually build a muscle for that. So they can go, oh, look at her, teetotaler, goody two shoes, she can't have a drink. It's like, I know, I'm weird as they come. And just go right on about my business. They get to be right. And I am a teetotaler now for different reasons.
I get that. One of the things that Jay and I have been talking about is teachers, and you're one of Jay's life teachers and lifelong teachers. As an educator, who would you say would be the major influences in your current practice and what you're doing, and where that advice or soundboard would come from for yourself, and any advice that you would have for practical guidance for other people when seeking teachers? And what would that advice be for seeking esoteric teachers and consultations as well?
I would love to hear from Jay, because it's striking to hear me to be considered as his teacher, because we've had, what, 6 or 8 interactions, honey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like a workshop or two, like a few classes, a sermon here and there, over what, a period of how many years, honey?
Yeah, about, I think I met you whenever Rev Cherie was around, so I don't know, 10, 15 years, seems like, I don't know, something like that. So, well, first of all, Byron Katie is you are a practitioner of Byron Katie's work, and Megan was unfamiliar with Byron Katie until I mentioned her the other day, I think, and I got introduced to Byron Katie in 2005, I believe. I think that's when Loving What Is was the first book. I believe that came out. And I had been a practitioner or I had been doing work through Landmark Education for a long time. And they have a very similar conversation about here's what happened and here's your story about what happened. Right? And so I've been grounded in that work forever. And then I got introduced to Byron Katie. And then when I came to Unity, there you are with Byron Katie and this new thought. And now and I say this on this show all the time. I consider myself somewhat of a new thought evangelist. Like I want everybody to know about new thought, especially people who are ensconced in a Christianity that really puts them as a sinner and as someone who is born into sin. Because I know my being, I know better, just like you did. I had to come to it at a much later in life. So for me, there's a couple of reasons that I want to be you when I grow up, and one is that how facile you are with the love. Like I feel this often. I think I'll feel it on Sunday because when I speak, I make sure. Well, I don't go into that church, and I'm a prayer chaplain now, so really I'm doing my spiritual hygiene. Megan and I have been talking a lot about spiritual hygiene, and when I'm really on my game and doing my spiritual hygiene, I walk into that building, and people see the light of God shining through me, right? And I can feel it, and they can feel it, and they see me like that. And Martha, that's always my experience with you. Like the second I'm with you, God is shining through you. And for me, that's like where I want to live, where I want to be. And then when you bring in the work, which is I've been a coach now for 20 plus years, and that work and that invitation for me as a coach is one of the most powerful. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it is the most powerful work that we can do, and so those are the main reasons. So I look at Byron Katie as a teacher that I've never met before, and you are the embodiment of that work.
Thank you, Jay. That's helpful, honey. So, Byron Katie is an author of Loving What Is, which I will make clear here with y'all again. I do not love what is. I don't even like what is most of the time. However, the subtitle to the book is 4 Questions That Will Change Your Life, and that's what I'm about. So I do not love what is, but I'm about 4 questions that will change my life, and it has. And I've been trained and facilitated this for 25 years now. And I've also grown in the work because I found that my mind would also try to strategize and manage how the work was falling and stuff like that. So I still do the work. I do it daily. It's a practice for me. And you can find all the resources are free at thework.com. Thework.com. And the book you have the title, and there's other ways to get that as your practice. And to answer your question, Megan, I'll do it in segments because there's a lot to it, honey, that I would encourage people for whatever works for them, to use what works. And if it's the work, use the work. If it's 12-step, get to a meeting, don't drink and use, and do your practices, do your amends, do your inventories. If it's Course in Miracles, get in there and see that what I am made up about this is not real, that what I am seeing is an imagination. It is meaning I've put on something. It is an interpretation of this. So whatever is your path that works for you, there's no one here on this podcast to talk you out of your practice, but to encourage you to go deeper into the practice, to dial it up, to look at where I may be in a rut about it, or where I've taken it, where I've left it on a back burner for a little bit, or like, oh, I know how to do the work. I've met Byron Katie. I've been to her house. It's like blah, blah, blah. Well, tell your face because it's stressed. So get back to the work instead of quoting an author, for example, things like that. I have been very, very benefited by the work. I have also studied and worked with crucial conversations, which helps me in my profession and what I do. It also helps me in my relationships on how to assume when something goes crossways, to assume no ill intent, and to speak using different languages. People would akin it to nonviolent communication and approaching it from what is the need here. If I can address the need here, we're going to do better. There'll be more mediation possible and things like that. I'm trained in mediation and conflict resolution. What I've been into the last 5 years in the groups that I facilitate now is primarily Dr. David Hawkins' work, which is surrendering, and it's called Letting Go, A Pathway to Surrender. That's the title of the book, and I guide folks through that through an 8-month immersive process. And we practice this, which is allowing emotions, which most of us don't have any skill at much, because when emotion arises, big emotions, intense emotions, we are patterned to suppress, depress, disown, and deny them. And therefore, we've built a reservoir of that. So anytime then that emotion starts to arise again, it feels like it will absolutely kill us, that it'll overwhelm us. So we've got to use something to numb out. We've got to distract from it. So this is a way of meeting that emotion with some understanding, and instead of building a bigger reservoir of that, to take down the reservoir that's already been there since our childhood. I also add to that work each year a different book. So this year I immersed myself in self-compassion. So every day I do a little 3-minute presentation that's free around how I practically applied self-compassion today. And that's a part of my own healing. That's a part of my own amend making to my soul, to my body, to my emotions, to my psyche, to whatever I've injured over the 60 some years, to make it right as I can. And that was the work primarily of Kristen Neff and Chris Germer from last year. And then this year I'm using Radical Acceptance, Tara Brock's work. And that is it's a deepening of this. It's still self-compassion. It's not aside from self-compassion, but radical self-compassion. I'm also inspired this year by Mel Robbins' books on Let Them. And that's already what I'm practicing. But when I hear that from a different teacher in a different voice, it's like let them, let them, let them makes perfect sense to me. Stay in your own lane, mind your own bit, which is the work says, mind your own business. Whose business are you in? When you're in stress, you're not in your own business. And then let them, but I got out of that, for example, letting them be them, letting them have their philosophies, their attitudes, their hurts, their suffering, whatever, lets me stay more in integrity to myself. It lets me stay on my own purpose. So letting them lets me. So that was a big takeaway. That just came to me in the last year or so. And then the work that I'm very much inspired by and alive in, I've already referenced twice here, is IFS work, Internal Family Systems, and it's 40 years ago founded by Dr. Richard Schwartz. And it is becoming more mainstream now. You're hearing more about it. And everything that the work was also IFS work. I just didn't have the context for it. Sure. In the work, we write worksheets on who offended us and who we're mad at and what we want them to do and what they should do and shouldn't do. And all of that was pointing back to an injured part of myself, a place in me where I didn't have the inner resources to sort this out. And I was getting more and more dependent on people, not to use that tone of voice, not to say those words, not to be offensive, not to keep your word, and this demanding, willful way for human beings without ever addressing that it's hopeless. And that I have within me the inner resources to meet that part of me that's seeking that from the external, that it's now my spiritual accountability to meet that part of me within me. So I cannot say enough about that. And it's new. I'm only about 4 years into that now, and 20 some years into the work. I've also studied and used and referenced the works of Eckhart Tolle and so many coaches I've had. I just could go on and on, honey. But that's currently what's over there. As I look over there on that table, the books that are on that table that I use in these classes, the primary classes that I do, which are monthly, is Letting Go, A Pathway to Surrender, No Bad Parts, which is the name of Richard Schwartz's book, No Bad Parts, And the book that helped me the most is Greater Than the Sum of Our Parts. Greater than the sum of our parts, because it addresses clearly the spirituality of this, not just the clinical, emotional, traumatic responses that we have, the instinct that takes over, but the spiritual nature of us that is Jay's profound words and what happened in you, I think, Megan, when you heard, I can't be out of integrity to my own soul, like that idea that that part of us that cannot be injured. Parts of us were injured. The child aspect of us was injured. Our emotions were injured, but there's still a part of us that can observe that injury and still knows there's another way here. It knows the truth. It knows I am whole. I am divine. I am infinite. I'm eternal. And it, to the degree that we can clear this, heal these traumas, and interrupt some of this patterning, that self stays more in the lead. And then you would describe it as Jay has here when you're in the presence of somebody that is more self-led, you'll be in an experience of love more often, most of the time. And if Jay and I were together more, he would definitely have some experience of me that wouldn't love, because I would cross him or say no to him or give him the side eye or something. So that is our nature that happens in relationships. That we, one of the women this morning that I was working with and the coaching that I do said she is certain that she is supposed to be love in every situation. And she wasn't love. She called somebody a bitch that she cares about. She's been threatened legally now. So the pain is not in what happened. The pain is in an unquestioned belief and an innocent, mythical, fantasy-based belief that we can be love in every situation. Because love is defined by a 3-year-old in us, not what love actually is. For
I
example.
love that. Love is defined by the 3-year-old in us. That's brilliant.
Well, if you look at it like that too, honey, like what a little 3-year-old would say, I know you love me when you look at me kindly, when you speak kindly, when you give me what I want. It's like, as long as that's going, I am love, love, love. Do you love
Happy,
me?
happy, happy.
Happy, happy, happy. And the second you look at me side-eyed, you say, not now, shut up, get out of my way, what's wrong with you? Some of the things we heard, and whack, by the way, and you'll never amount to a hill of beans, and God only knows what else. It's like, oh, not love. And then it gets extreme because it's not like that was not love for a minute, that was not love for a moment. It's like she didn't love me. I'm not safe with her. She left me. I can't trust her. So all kinds of belief systems build around those traumatic, injurious moments. And we're here to meet them differently now, I hope, with some understanding and with a wholeheartedness within ourselves instead of believing somebody outside of us can bring our medicine. And if somebody outside of us, a teacher, a mentor, a book, a song, the sunset, we can get medicine in many, many places. And then ultimately, there's a part of it that only we can do, I think. That there's things I don't and cannot do alone, and not supposed to, can't even. And there's parts of it I will have to do. I have to do my own inner work.
Yeah, and don't you think, I mean, to your point or to your question, Megan, Martha, don't you think that Spirit brings us the right teacher at the right time? Like because I've followed, for me also, the self-compassion piece has been really huge for me, given, especially as a parent. My children are my master teachers, and I have had to deal with myself and deal with the parts of me that are just nasty and take accountability for that and responsibility, which is what I talk about in my book. It's also Stephen Covey's word. It's all been said before, but that I just I share a lot this woman by the name of Robin Goebel, who wrote a book called raising kids with big baffling behaviors. And we have a child with autism, and he's got a lot going on. And we adopted through foster care. We have all that stuff to deal with. But I remember vividly at this time listening to that book, and at one point just turning it off. And if it was a physical book, I'd have thrown it across the room, because I got for myself in that moment, oh, I'm the one with the big baffling behaviors. It's my nervous system that is in protection mode all the time, right? And it was profound to be able to get that level of compassion for myself,
Right.
because boy, did that. I mean, I thought that I had compassion for myself until I had to go through what we did last year with one of my kids, and I realized I'm the one that is triggering this child because of my own stuff. And it's like the right teacher is always, if I'm willing, it feels like, and sometimes even if I'm not, the right teacher is always there, right when I need it.
Yeah. That's masterful, honey, though, to see it as that. That even to be willing enough, devoted enough, surrendered enough to say, I don't know what compassion is. It's a mind-made thing. I don't know what compassion is yet. I don't know. It's an unfolding of that. And it's similar, honey, that I was sitting with my dad on his dying bed. And I've told this many times in interviews similar. And if you had asked me that day, on a scale of 10, how compassionate are you? I'd have said 8. I value it. I work at it. I do daily forgiveness of myself and others, anybody I put out of my heart, to put them back in my heart. I absolutely am about doing what I can, accepting what I cannot change in a devotional practice. And I caught myself because I was questioning everything, which is my practice. Like, am I actually compassionate? Is that true? And they told him that day he needs to be sure to stay hydrated or he's seriously facing pneumonia. And for sure, if pneumonia came on him, it would be the death of him. He wouldn't survive it because he had a collapsed lung, a tube in one lung, and other things. And so I said, Daddy, you want some water? And he said, No, honey, I'm not a bit thirsty. And I said, Well, here, drink some. Just drink down half the bottle. Just drink it down to this thing. See, this is what I thought compassion was. He said, No, I'm not thirsty a bit. And here I come in with the water to help him, to keep him alive. And without even knowing that in the inner part of me, I feel responsible for his life. A life that I can't control, a life that I can't save. So it puts me in the position of God. So it's like, where's God when you've got me to be God? So there's no God online here. I have no connection with Source when I'm trying to be God. And I caught myself. And I said, Now, Daddy, did you hear that part? Because he had hearing loss. Did you catch that part about if you don't drink water, you could get a pneumonia and it would actually kill you because you've got such severe, lung issues? He said, Yeah, I heard that. I said, okay. So that was that. Then out of the blue, he would say, Is there any water in that pitcher? I'm kind of thirsty. I'd be like, Oh, I'm your girl. So your water's right here, I'm right here. So it's like, who is how I say it now, like, who knew my dad could detect thirst? I was the last to know he could detect thirst. Then it was like, you need to get up and walk around some. And I said, Daddy, we need to get up and walk around some. No, I don't want to get up. And I'm like, well, good, let's go ahead and get up. Here, put your arms around my neck. And this is Saint Martha here. And it's like, which one of these people would you want on your dying bed? So then I would finally woke up. I woke up. As your show, I woke up again. And I said, okay, did you hear the part about the pneumonia, honey, that you're supposed to move around some and it'll help you not get that pneumonia? Yeah, I heard that. I said, okay. Then out of the blue, he'd say, how far is that nurse's station? Maybe we'll walk down there. Okay, I'm your girl. So I found out what compassion was. And then I found out that if that's me on that dying bed, I want the second version of me there with me. And I have found that most human beings would want the second version of St. Martha there, not somebody trying to control and dictate and save and fix and rescue when there's no opening for it. If somebody is saying, hey, give me the water, it's like, I'm your girl, versus here, drink some water, drink some more water. You got to, be sure you don't die. Don't die on my watch. And it's like, well, I'd rather be dead than to put up with all this. But um, compassion, honey, self-compassion, like we don't know yet what it is. We know what it is at the level of our awareness. And I've said, and this comes to me very regularly, of the things I'm most grateful for from my teachers, these profound wake up kind of moments. And one of them was, and it was written by Ed Friedman, who was Murray Bowen's protege from external family systems work that I did for 20 some years. And he said, you cannot make a bean plant grow by pulling on it. So with your children, honey, with my family, with my dad, with people, with anybody that I'm like, here, read this book, here, do this practice, here, do that, here, go to retreats, here, go to confession, here, go to a 12-step meeting. It's like, well, if I can offer those resources and offer it freely, so that I'm not dependent on them actually doing any of it, then it was freely offered. So then they may say, Martha's my teacher. Martha's who put me in touch with that. But then they may never do anything that I offer.
Right.
And it's like, so be it. That's equal, and it's on God's timing, not on mine. And it helps me to remember I cannot make a bean plant grow by pulling on it, including myself. Byron Katie used to say it as, you cannot exceed your own evolution. It's like, dang,
Yeah.
I'm in a hurry.
Yeah. Well, I'm a good helper. I could be a good helper.
Well,
My Al-Anon, because I also attend 12 steps. I feel I have a family full of alcoholics. I'm an adult child of alcoholic in Al-Anon, and I've started going to back into that work in this past year again because that's what's needed now. And my sponsor. Recently had a situation where I had a couple of workbooks, and I said, I have a couple of these. Should I give this to somebody else? And my sponsor said, did she ask for it? And I was like,
yeah,
well, that never even occurred to me.
exactly, honey. And it's like, so now if I was sponsoring, I would have said no. And only let's ask me again after you have completed it in detail. After you have completed the workbook, check back. I'll see who might it be for next. Yeah. But that's a perfect example, honey. And all of us got wired as helpers, honey.
Yeah.
It's also a traumatic response.
Yes.
Our helping is a traumatic response. And it's important then to accept our own level of codependency, not that it's awful or a character flaw or something like that, I think, honey, but to have self-compassion with our codependency and our helping and fixing and rescuing, because it's what led us to the professions we're in. It's what led us to a podcast like this, to say that we do have a sincere, wholehearted desire to help. And we cannot help that that's there. And we're powerless at times. So there's ways we can help, and certain people we can help, certain situations will be seen as helpful in, and there'll be some situations where they won't relate to us as helpful, or even that we were trying to control and manipulate them and whatever. So it's a big old both and a heart of a wholehearted relativity to any identification you do as helper, because we didn't get just one strand of DNA of helping. We got several strands of helper gene. And it's a cross to bear in some ways. It's also a superpower, I believe. And it's heavy and something to navigate, and it absolutely holds a lot of potency, I think. Our desire to be helpers and to be in the world that could use some help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very well said. Another thing that Jay and I talked about, especially as a helper, what are some of the waves that you have either experienced your clients as a coach or a minister that have been a little bit more focused on this year than any other year, or that has been progressing into that? And then on the flip side, for you, I know we talked about every year you choose something to focus, a wave to actually for you to focus and for you to grow on. Do you think that those work in tandem with each other, or that you are focusing on this one thing and then all of the sudden all of your clients are needing that same thing and all of your ministries are about that thing? Or do you see it kind of, vice versa? I've had a lot of clients who have experienced this past year. Let's dig into that. How does that kind of shake out for you?
It absolutely is, and I can't remember how you said it, Megan, but it is not. It is a layering. It is a mix. It's not siloed off. So I still do the work, and I've got other modalities that inform how I do the work now. For example, so I still do inquiry daily. I use inquiry as a practice daily, and it looks differently than it did 20 years ago when I first got in touch with inquiry. So, for example, now I may hear somebody said in a client's call with me, so I'm immersed in that too. So I'm listening for where it kind of dinged me, or how I'm clear as a bell that that's reflecting something to me. That at times I can see, like, oh my God, that's my same languaging even. So a woman was working with me and she said, I don't know what to say, Martha. It was just wrong on all levels. It was wrong on all levels. So that's what I would take to inquiry. That kind of intensity. Where in me do I look upon anything and go, it's wrong on all levels? And that righteous part of me, that righteous indignation takes over. And then I'm hi ho, back to hell I go.
Mhm.
So I've got to interrupt that to say, is that actually true that that's wrong? And the truth is, it's wrong for me. It's wrong for me. However, I don't get to set what is wrong for you. I don't get to put my righteousness off on you. So it's not wrong for them. I don't get to set what their integrity is. I have not lived in their shoes. I've not lived their traumas. I don't have their nervous system. I don't have their brains. I don't have their emotional wiring. So it is wrong for me, and that informs me then that if it's wrong for me, then that's what I've got to live out. That's all there ever is to it. And then it's like, well, then you're apathetic. It's like, well, I'm apathetic at times. I certainly am. And there's times I'm not apathetic. I'm simply clear that I can do a thing about what's going on over there. And particularly in Jay's point earlier, I've not been asked. So until I'm asked, they're in a monologue, and I cannot mistake monologue for dialogue and stay at peace. So I've found that over the years, whatever I introduce, the people that are resonant with that are more likely to join in. So they're interested in what Martha's doing. They're interested in what I will immerse myself in. They would take a recommendation for a book and probably check it out for themselves. And others have said, though, Martha, I want nothing to do with that IFS work. I'll tell you that right now. And they may have even already been familiar with it because their therapist tried to use it with them. But see, IFS will remind you that a part of you says hell to the no, because it's not ready yet to look into those exiled parts of ourselves. It's not ready yet to open Pandora's box. So they may say, I want nothing to do with that. But they can still be a part of my programs, part of my coaching or spiritual direction or counseling, whatever people. And I'm not a counselor. I have no license to counsel. I simply take what I'm integrating in my own life and in my own practice and offer it out to others. So they call it whatever they call it. I have no certifications or licensure for counseling or coaching, and many people relate to me as that. So whatever I'm doing and the work that I can do and integrate within myself is an attractor to people. People would say, she's got something. There's something going on in her. And it felt right. It felt like I wanted to go toward it, for example. So that opens conversations about, Martha, what do you think? What do you practice? What are you offering? Can I get a workshop or something like that? So it's purely by attraction. I will, if I form up a curriculum, which I usually do 4 or 5 times a year, these 8-month programs that I lead people through, facilitate, is one of those things that I just described earlier. And then usually in the spring and then again in the fall, I'll do a class on a book that I wanted to go back to, for example, which could be The 5 Invitations of Life, which I have loved, particularly to serve a demographic that I believe is deeply in grief. A state of mind that we're in without even knowing that we're in grief. And most of us have denied grief for most of our lives because it's too overwhelming. It absolutely feels like it will finish us off. It's so big. So I then put that out there. This is the book I'm using. This is my kind of take on it. I will be giving my commentary about it. I don't claim to know much about it. I'm a student, and if you can be benefited by my reflections and commentary, you're welcome to join. I do most of it on a donation basis, so it never leaves somebody out. They can give or not give. That's very important to me. And some of the things that I do, I charge for, particularly if I'm going to have expense around it. If I'm buying retreat centers or materials and paying for resources and websites and post and stuff like that, I charge because I'm committed to offsetting the expense on some of that. And it's important to me to keep it as affordable and as accessible as possible for all humans. And I don't turn people away. So if they called and said, I'm ready for this, and I had a direct experience of them, that they had demonstrated that kind of willingness, that kind of devotion to it, it's not just they're poking around or curious or something like that, I would absolutely welcome them into anything I'm doing, whether they could pay for it or not.
I love that.
And it's the layering that I tried to describe, honey, is like somebody will say, I think she's doing the work, but it sounds like a landmark. Or somebody will say, she must be trained in landmark, which I never was, but I related to it because I studied it. I studied it myself. So it would say, then they would say, oh, she's a Course in Miracles student. And it's like, I'm not really, but I read the course and I understand and comprehended the course based on that. My first experience of the course was on the first page when it said, what you are looking at and thinking is real is not. To know this, herein lies the peace of God. And it's like, oh, well, complete. There's the course right there on the first page. And I don't mean to diminish it. Like I suddenly was awakened to it, but it's like, yeah, like let me just practice that instead of trying to gain theoretical quotes around the course or theoretical understanding of it. It's like the embodiment is where I have found the power, the embodiment of the teachings, not the quoting of the teachings and things like that.
Yeah.
I have got, so I draw on all the resources, all the training I've had, which is now 60 some years of it, honey. And if you listened to me long enough, you'd be like, oh, that sounded like so-and-so, and it's like there's aspects of it, of that in there. And I want to keep those aspects in there. I don't feel like, I'm not committed to, it's only got to be this speak or that speak. Also, I feel inclusive in my nature. So, for example, that I wouldn't relate, I wouldn't identify, like if somebody said, if you're a Christian, I would say it depends on how you define Christian. So if you can define Christian, then I can answer the question on whether I'm a Christian. Do you believe that Jesus was the Son of God? Do you believe Jesus manifest in a body? Do you believe that you have to be redeemed and saved? Do you believe heaven is a place you go to? It's like, I don't. And I believe that salvation is a different context for salvation, for example, and that it's not a salvation out there, but a salvation within me, that the salvation is my spiritual accountability. So there's common grounds there, and I do my best to stay open to all people and to join them in their belief where they believe. And like I said at the beginning of our conversation here, that I cannot, if I'm at all conscious, awake, I would not leave myself or leave my own convictions to try to fit into somebody else's convictions or somebody else's beliefs.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Martha, it's been so good to get to know you, and thank you so much. How can folks find you if they wanted to listen to one of your Compassion videos or take a class or workshop or get involved with you? We'll put it down in the show notes, but how else can people get involved with what you're getting involved in?
It's so easy. It'll be the easiest thing anybody's ever done. MarthaCreek.com. MarthaCreek.com. My name. And it's the website's there. It's got all the links to the YouTube free, thousands of free videos. There's 2 books that are on Amazon. They're also on Audible. And I've also already read them chapter to chapter, page by page, out loud on YouTube. So people that don't want to buy a book or don't have money to buy a book can have the books without buying them. So the YouTube channel, if they'll go over there and poke around, they'll find all matters of teaching and classes and courseworks over there, every bit of it free. So, and then through the social media, honey, the Instagram and Facebook and all that, these little 3-minute videos are out there every day on those on TikTok and whatever's out there. If they just put in my name, it'll absolutely come in there.
Yeah, before this, I'd been in your classes before, but I'd never heard you on a podcast. And the day that I came over, we came over to see you at Unity Village. I listened to you on a podcast that morning, and that was the first time I'd heard your story from being a little kid and declaring yourself a minister. And I, because I've been around you before, but you weren't talking about your history. We were talking about the work, or we were, transforming lives or other ways. So. She's out there, folks.
I usually only go into it if I'm asked, honey. But all that you can, it just by listening. Do you know what podcast it was, Jay? What you heard, honey?
I don't remember now. It was some young guy. He sounded like a young guy we were talking to.
Yeah. Well, anybody that asks, I've done it. I've never said no to one, and doesn't mean I won't. If I was guided to say no, depending on what their motivations were, it's possible. But so far, it's been an absolute yes. And just that day that I saw you, the Friday before that day, an NPR radio had interviewed me out there in Kansas City area. And I asked him how it was. I said, do you have any feedback about that or whatever? Do you feel like did it meet your goals and whatever? And he said, oh, yes. He said, I feel like I didn't have to do anything. He said, I wished all the guests were like you. And then he said, the first comment we got was, I don't even know who that woman is, but I just wanted to come through the radio and hug her.
Oh, I love that.
So I think that's what you're referring to, honey, about what energy is being conveyed. Even if you look at somebody or their voice or their eyes or their tone or their speak or their languaging or something and whatever energies in the heart is being conveyed through some of that. And that's what you described at the opening of this, of your experience for me. And for that, I'm very grateful that is your experience. And yours, Megan, that I got to be in your space today, honey, in your heart. And for your questions and to support this wake up wave that you're a part of, to be any part of that. I'm delighted about that.
Well, we're delighted you came. Thank you so much for saying yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I go where I'm invited, so have me back.
All right. Will do. Will do. Thank you so much.
Thanks for catching the wake-up wave with us.
We hope today sparked something in you, a reminder, a question, or even a deeper breath.
If you're feeling the shift, share this episode, leave us a review, or just keep tuning in. Every wave you catch matters.
And remember, what we focus on actually expands. We are all very deeply connected.